My name is Andy Buzzard, and I'm doing a presentation on the Wendy's company right now for Management 370, McNeese State University. So first thing I want to focus on is the organizational structure of the Wendy's company. And to do that, we're going to look a little bit at Wendy's themselves. So the first thing, Wendy's is a fast food restaurant, as most people know. They have over 6,500 locations, and they're located in 30 different countries. That makes them the third largest fast food burger company in the entire world. Their main competitors, of course, are Burger King, Wendy's, and then some other companies like Yum Brands and others right there. The mission of the Wendy's company, one of the big things that they focus on is quality. They say that quality is their recipe, and that is the number one thing that they focus on. When they explain that, they say quality is our recipe. We don't cut corners on our products, services, or employees. And so really you see that the entire business structure, every element of it, focuses on that quality. That's why if you see in a lot of their commercials, they say fresh and never frozen products. So that way all their meat is the highest quality it can be. But recently they've been stepping out of just looking at fresh and never frozen, but they're creating a healthy quality product. And as it states in the mission statement, that they also aren't cutting corners on their service or their employees. So they want every area, they want it to be a good atmosphere. They want their employees to be taken care of in a quality manner in all regards. The next part of their mission statement says that they should treat everyone with respect. And they explain that by saying to be genuine and kind and lend a helping hand to everyone. And so with this statement, Wendy's again is re-emphasizing that they want their employees to take care of their customers, and they want their employees to take care of one another. They want to treat each other with respect. They always want to live by that rule. And really, they don't want it to be just a fake thing, but the next part of it says to do the right thing. Honesty and integrity are rules that we live by. And so the Wendy's company expects that their employees are going to be honest and integral, or integrity, full of integrity in all areas of their life. And so they look at that both internally and externally. Internally, saying that you're not going to steal from this corporation, you're not going to lie about your timesheet, you're going to do your job when you're working, and that kind of thing. Externally, they're not going to cheat their employees. They're expected to, charge the right prices to their employees and that kind of thing. And so Wendy's focuses on their quality in that regard. And as with any publicly traded corporation, growth is a very essential part to Wendy's structure. Their mission statement says that that growth is through profit and profit is through teamwork. And so really when you look at that, Wendy's growth strategy is focusing on really putting together a solid team of individuals in each individual store as well as corporately. And so they put together a really, really good team approach to their business structure. When you look at their business structure, or I guess their mission, one thing that you notice is they have a more European approach to growth rather than an American approach to growth. Really, the American approach states that it's a corporation's responsibility to maximize shareholder equity. But shareholders really aren't the number one. Shareholders really aren't mentioned in Wendy's mission statement whatsoever. But instead, Wendy's focuses on taking care of employees, taking care of customers, and that kind of thing. So you see that they have maximization of stakeholder equity rather than shareholder equity in their mission statement. And the mentality through that is that if the customers are happy because they're quality product, quality service, the corporation is going to do well. And so shareholder maximization is also going to happen. Right now, Wendy's is in the process of changing their marketing strategy from an older generation to the millennial generation. And so what they're doing is they're basically creating new restaurants like this one right here that are just more snazzy looking and that kind of thing. But those aren't the only customers they focus on. As we looked at the mission statement, they have the internal customers that are their employees, that are their shareholders, their stakeholders, all of that. And Wendy's does a really good job at prioritizing and focusing on all of those customers, whether it be internal or external. Now, as the mission statement says, that growth is an integral part of their business focus, and so Wendy's pushes for all stakeholders to be a part of that growth, and an interesting way that they do that is through their customers. So since customers are a part of their stakeholder, they want them to be a part of the growth, and so they're putting together different types of campaigns that involve social media, so that customers are advertising for Wendy's themselves, and so that customers not only are going to help Wendy's achieve their mission through actually going and shopping at the Wendy's locations, but they're also doing it through participating in the advertising process itself. So now we're going to look at some key elements to Wendy's organizational structure. So anytime that a company is a fast food company and quality is the number one thing that they're focusing on, there's going to be some problems, because quality usually is not a fast food is really not known for quality as a whole, and with a perishable item, quality is a hard thing to maintain. With Wendy's focus on never freezing their foods again, quality is a hard thing to maintain. So in order to achieve that goal of quality, Wendy's has to have an extremely strong supply chain management system in place, and that they do. To the point where they created their own company called the Quality Supply Chain Co-op, and that company's purpose is to manage Wendy's supply chain. And there's 3 different areas of the supply chain I'm going to focus on today, and the first one is their supplier management, the second one is their logistics management, and the third is their inventory management. And so the first one is supplier management. Primarily, the biggest suppliers for Wendy's are their meat suppliers, their basically their animal product suppliers, and their farming suppliers. And so there's a lot of controversy going on within that field right now. And one of the main controversial topics is the topic of basically how high of a quality living do your animals have to have before you butcher them. And one side of it says, well, they're going to be butchered, so they really don't need to have a high quality of living. And the other side of it would disagree with that clearly. Wendy's would fall more on the you have to take care of your animals before you butcher them side of it, and they require all of their suppliers to do the same. And so they put together a very strict set of standards called their animal welfare standards. And within that, Wendy's they have basically a group of requirements that all of their suppliers have to follow. One interesting way that Wendy's has started creating a better animal welfare or animal lifestyle is there's one of their suppliers, who is a chicken supplier, came up with a system called the LAP system. And in that system, it changes the way that that chickens are butchered. And so what used to happen is that a chicken, he would be electrically shocked right before he would go to get butchered, and that would knock him out instantly. It was a violent process. This LAP system is an alternative to that, and what it does is they allow the chickens to be put in a low atmospheric pressure system, and instead of it being a violent thing, it's a slow and painless process that basically puts the chicken in a coma instantly, or not instantly, quickly, and it keeps them out permanently, so they can be put into a coma until they're able to be butchered. So Wendy's is trying to integrate this with all of their chicken suppliers to raise the quality of living for their animals before butchering. Another important thing is the food safety side of their suppliers, and that's probably even more important to Wendy's and to any fast food company, is making sure that they have a safe product. And so one way that Wendy's does this is they look at basically the atmosphere that the animal is going to be living in, and so they make sure that all of the animals have enough room to freely graze. And that the reason for that is if all the animals are in a tight, confined area, as they use the restroom, they're going to be basically walking around in their own feces, eating off of their own feces, and that kind of thing. And it just creates an unhealthy living standard where the animals are going to be prone to disease and that kind of thing. And so their meat is going to also be prone to disease. So Wendy's makes sure that all of the suppliers have, just the animals are able to move around and able to move as much as they would need to. And they also have to have proper ventilation, and so it can't just be a big closed-in area, because what happens is as animals use the restroom, it creates an ammonia, and the animals will start breathing in this ammonia from their own feces, and again will create a problem for the animals and create an unhealthy and unsafe food standard. And so Wendy's makes sure that all of their suppliers have proper ventilation because of that. Another big and controversial thing going around right now is the use of antibiotics in animals. And so some people are stating that antibiotics are going to basically create a problem with the meat and a lower quality of the meat. And other people say that antibiotics are necessary to keep the animals up. Wendy's supports and requires all of their suppliers to use antibiotics with their animals, and that way basically you can eliminate a lot of disease in animals, eliminate a lot of problems with the meat quality itself, and basically just have a higher standard of living for the animals through that. While that is debated, Wendy's has done studies on it and found that the quality of meat really isn't lowered through using antibiotics, and if anything, the quality of meat is higher. So they make sure that all of their suppliers do that. And then the last element that they look at is they require all of their suppliers to follow a very strict feed guideline for their animals. And basically they have a certain level of feed quality that they have to use, and there's an FDA regulation that they implement to all their suppliers to make sure that the animals are being fed the proper way that is going to just basically create the best quality meat altogether. Now, Wendy's doesn't just put together this list of rules and say, here you go, I hope y'all follow them, or anything along those lines. Instead, what Wendy's does is first off, they make all of their suppliers sign written agreements, of course, but then after that, they maintain regular audits on all of these suppliers. And so what they mean by that is once every year, at the very least once every year, Wendy's will either show up without any notice or show up with notice and do an audit on the supplier facilities and make sure that they're following all of these standards. If a facility has some problems and they get a lower than excellent mark, Wendy's basically puts them on a probationary period. And in that probationary period, instead of being audited once a year, they're going to be audited at least twice a year, if not more. And if Wendy's finds that they still aren't following the standards that they're requiring, then Wendy's will cut off, basically void the contract with the suppliers. So Wendy's very much so makes sure that their management of their suppliers is done in an effective way. After the product is done with the supplier, it then gets, of course, shipped off to their distributors, and from their distributors to each individual franchise. And so, of course, logistics management is a very integral part to their quality management. So Wendy's, they don't have their own distributors, as in they don't have their own trucks and that kind of thing, but instead they use third-party companies who will ship product to and from different places. Now, just because they don't have their own distribution trucks and that kind of thing, that doesn't mean they don't stay involved in every process of the distribution. They actually have a logistics team whose job it is to work with everyone in the distribution process. So from when the product gets loaded into the truck or ship or whatever it may be, from the supplier to the distribution center, and then from the distribution center to wherever it may be going from there. Wendy's is involved in every single part of that process. Now, a lot of times when people think of logistics, their brain stops at just route making, so they make sure they're using an efficient route and that kind of thing. But while the logistics department does focus on that kind of thing, even more importantly, they focus on basically simple things like packing procedures and that kind of thing. Wendy's found they found an effective and kind of, it seems like an obvious, but it's still at the same time not an obvious method for making sure that their logistics management is effective. They what they do is they have all of their boxes loaded onto pallets, and these pallets basically, as a, let's say, burgers are loaded into a box and then they're put on this pallet until the pallet's full. So once the pallet's full, they take the whole pallet, which will contain hundreds of boxes, and they'll lift it with a forklift, put it in the back of a truck, and then they fill up the truck with pallets. The truck ships off. Instead of somebody having to unload box after